This is episode 16 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generally sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. Today, I'd like to welcome Wendy Bohling. Wendy is a tried and true, been-in-the-trenches engineer who discovered her ability to speak geek was more valuable in sales. Enjoying 30 years of success in engineering, corporate sales, executive, and entrepreneur set her up for her true calling to help women leap to their next level of greatness through her work as an author, speaker, trainer, and coach. She is known for her unique ability to wryly shine a light on the things that have been hiding that lead to our greatest strengths. With her stories and Southern charm, Wendy inspires others to see how the very thing we've been hiding is our greatest strength. She has helped many executives and coworkers realize their full potential. Wendy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Katrina.
Yeah, so I would love to know, with all of your executive and corporate experience, how did you find this true calling? How did you make the switch and take the leap?
It is amazing. I went through one of the lowest points in my life, which was after being in engineering at these fabulous jobs. I was a director of all the leading bleeding edge projects in Avaya, and I ended up reporting sexual harassment and went through 18 months of retaliation.
Oh, wow.
That was just brought me to my knees, and then was finally walked out and fired from the company.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of those things where you kind of figure out what you're made out of, right? And all I could think at the time was, I'm a pretty tough cookie, right? I've kind of went head to head with the guys in a male-dominated telecom industry for 20 years. And it really made me realize, what do less confident or extroverted women feel like in these positions? So I had a special compassion around it, I guess, that came out of this. And I ended up taking 6 months off, and was, to be honest, sitting there feeling sorry for myself one afternoon when the kids were off at daycare. And I was watching a movie called 8 Seconds with the story of the youngest rodeo rider, Lane Frost. And he gets bucked off and in his championship ride and hurt. And his best friend comes in and says, yep, it looks like you're done. You only have worked your whole life for this. Or you can cowboy up, show them what you're made out of, and go out there and get it done. And I thought, I just need to cowgirl up. I need to figure out what's next in my life.
Oh my gosh, that gave me chills, because we were going to get to this later, but I had no idea that was how you got your book title, Cowgirl Up, right?
The Cowgirl Up, A Woman's Guide to Navigating the Corporate Frontier. And I started writing it actually that night. And
you were
it was, and then I ended up in those 6 months, I looked at whatever I wanted to do next. I treated it as a blank slate. And I was lucky enough, about 4 months in, that a lovely woman who was part of my network sat me down. I thought we were just having wine to see how we were both doing. And she said, I'd like you to come and join my software startup company, my 4-year-old software company. And I said, no, I need my 2 more months. I have 6 months that I'm getting my crap together here.
Cutting you short.
And so we came up with a way for me to ease into it part-time. And after a year, she ended up offering me a partnership in the business. And she asked me to do sales full-time. I had gotten our first $1 million sale.
Wow.
And by just upselling a current client, and that's how I got into the sales side of things.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because I think any entrepreneur or any startup company, would be kidding themselves if we weren't a little jealous of any $1 million sale. How did that happen? How do you take a current client and upsell
It
them?
was, it was, it's amazing. In fact, it's one of the things I tell entrepreneurs now is a lot of them don't want to get good at sales. It was for the same reason as salespeople seem slimy. They lie. They get paid to go out to dinner. And what I realized is, as an extroverted engineer, my ability to be intuitive about people, to figure out who was the decision maker, who was the thought leader, who could get us to the end point, but also building a relationship that came from a place of, what challenge am I fixing for you?
Got it.
So anybody, if it's keeping you up at night and I come and offer you a way to get you through that, who doesn't want to be helped, right? So it was about using your in the moment perspective to figure out what is their biggest challenge that you can help with, right? So in this case, I was the project manager for this storage project that we were doing. Okay. And every day at our stand-up meetings, I would say to our team, why is this taking a little bit longer? Not, I just want to understand, help me understand what the situation is. And they said, Wendy, it is amazing. This company, the way they've merged products, there's lots of mergers and acquisitions, and put solutions together, it is so fragile in terms of making any changes, break something. So I started thinking, they've got to be struggling with this too.
Right.
Why don't I asked the engineers, is there a way for us to fix this? And they said, let us think about it. They came back and they came up with we talked through a proposal, and I pitched it to the VP of engineering at the company and said, at this point, do you have a way to fix this? First, do you even know about the problem? He said,
right. Does it impact you?
We have no spare bandwidth. We don't even know how to approach it. And I said, well, we've come up with a kind of innovative way to approach it, kind of changing the airplane engine while it's in the air thing.
Okay.
So could we talk it through with you and see if we could help you? And he bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Wow. I think that's so interesting that the entrepreneurs that you've worked with and talked to over your career all kind of have this aversion to sales, because I know starting this company, I absolutely dreaded it. I'm like, I'm in marketing, I'm not in sales. And I remember someone telling me I needed to hop on the phone and do all these cold calls, and I was totally paralyzed, like could not do it. And then I do one after like 30 minutes of pacing, and it'd go to voicemail. And then I was like, I'm done. I can't. So anyway, what I found over the years, because, our company's 4 years old now, and we have brought on a lot of clients and, been in that sales piece. One of my strengths is actually listening. And so when we're having those conversations, I'm really good at hearing what their problems are. And I think that was most definitely a shift for me and in the sales role, and it helped us bring on better clients. And I don't feel sleazy at all. I just happen to hear what they're trying to accomplish, and I happen to have a solution for that. So it's totally different.
I agree, and it's one of the first rules I tell people about sales is first seek to understand before you pitch, right? Before you, it's like any of us want to be. If you're on a first date and the guy talks only about himself the whole night, how do you feel at the end of it, right?
Right. It's like, oh, that was great. Moving on.
Next. Right.
Swipe left or swipe right. I don't know which way it goes, one way or the other.
Swipe and left.
What do you think, looking at your career, what do you think a rookie mistake is that you made or often see happening?
Is definitely not trusting your gut and really listening to your intuition, where you, I think that sometimes we're so running at such a pace, we don't have the bandwidth or the silence to actually hear what the universe is trying to tell us, right? Of what is the next step, right?
Oh, got it.
I ended up making this big decision to leave corporate back in April. I was coming off of a healthcare IT startup job that was phenomenally fulfilling. It was a passion I had about fixing healthcare with technology, but the company just wasn't going to make it. And you go into startups understanding very few do, right?
Right.
I had 3 interviews with high-tech companies as in executive positions, and all 3 of them, when I got to the CEO interviews, it was like being punked in different ways in all 3.
Oh no! What happened?
And I realized I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a part of the solution and build something that actually improves this masculine, negative, male-dominated culture that business is at the top levels, right?
Got it.
And so I saw it as a way a calling, to be honest, of a unique perspective. I've always thought, Katrina, I could stir up things and people, and I could do it for good instead of evil, right? And
use your superpower for good. That's
right, only good. So be a maverick, but do it in a way that could actually improve corporate America for women and for men. We can get the value that women bring in the corporation and in business. So get more. So I have 3 huge guiding goals: more women in executive positions, more women starting their own companies, and eliminating the gender pay gap.
Wow. And what is the gender pay gap? Is it 70 cents on a dollar right now? Or is
it's around 78.
78 cents.
Yes.
That's incredible. What, as you're working on that mission and trying to close that gender gap, like, how do you think that happens? Like, what initiatives are you taking to make sure that happens?
Well, I think I can only tell you that one small thing that we as women can do is to talk about pay and not, it's such a taboo thing.
Right.
And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take me saying, hey, I'll give you an example. I'm doing a lot of public speaking and keynotes. And I've gone to women who are in that, who've written books and have their own companies. And I've said, what do you get for a keynote? And I said, let me tell you what I'm thinking, right? And I will not share what you've told me, but it makes us more powerful, right?
That is so smart. And that is something I don't think, I'm sure not enough people are doing.
Right.
I have never even thought of that. And even like when you're starting out speaking, there's a lot of people that give the advice of just do it for free to get your foot in the door.
Never undervalue yourself. Never.
That info is all over the place.
Yes. And I've been guilty of this. So even, the whole be advocating for yourself, right? And seeing the value that you bring, you can always reduce your price. You can never up your price, right?
Right.
And the value you bring. Talk about the value you bring. With the gender pay gap, a lot of companies I'm trying to work with, I have Mind the Gap program, but it's all about trying to figure out where you're at today, being very, very open about what are the issues you've got in the company. It could be retention. It could be recruiting. You just can't find a good way to get a pipeline of great women. It could be, I just talked to a company last week here in Boulder that had 2 women, had a man and a woman going to the same position, and the woman was getting, she had 2 years more experience. The man had 2 months, and he was getting 20% more than she.
That
So
is painful. And you know what? Speaking of Boulder, I was at this Women Who Start Up,
yes,
Women Phenomenon. What is it called?
women who start up. That's it.
Okay, so I heard this woman speak. Um, she's a professor, I think, at Stanford University, and she has studied negotiation skills. And she says anytime a man and a woman compete for something, the man consistently always out negotiates what the woman is asking for. However, when a woman is negotiating on behalf of another person, whether it's like a charity or a foundation or her family, she consistently out negotiates the man. And I have had to kind of play this in my head so many times when we talk about our value. And of course, we have numbers and analytics and things like that. But every time I frame it as, hey, I'm doing this for the good of the company so our team can be paid higher wages, so that our family can be better off, I consistently outperform my old results.
Yes, it is so true. If you can put it in a perspective of what it does for the company, why it's valuable, we as women can make that pitch easier, right? But even my 17-year-old, she will advocate for one of her friends a lot more than she will advocate for herself. So I think this comes from early on, and it's us seeing how valuable we are. So I see the exact same thing. Men go into look at a job description, and if they have 3 out of 10, they go for the job. The women who have 8 out of 10 say, I don't have those 2 things, and they hesitate. So it's all about us, right? And this is not about blaming women for not being more like men. This is about understanding our perspective. In fact, I speak to men's groups as much as women's groups to say, when a woman comes to you and she's not advocating for herself, don't think it's because she doesn't think she can do it. She is just not as pushy as men tend to be about their capabilities. And make sure that you're there to support her. You know what she's capable of. You've seen her working over the last couple years, and you be there understanding she's going to rate herself lower. Then you make sure that you understand it going into that and advocate for her in that regard.
Right. So before we hopped on this call, you and I were discussing this issue of women crying more often and women being known for just spilling some tears in the workplace. I would love for you to share your insight on that with the world, because I know in what I shared with you in my own personal experience, I had that in a corporate position, and my manager pulled me aside to share with me techniques of how I could improve and cry less often at work, basically. So I would love to share your perspective.
So again, I think knowledge helps us so much in this regard. And I had heard consistently in the 38 interviews I've done with executive women that, what do you hate about working with women in the business world? I hate it when women cry, and I hate it worse when I cry, right? And so I went to look at, was there a scientific reason, right? The researcher, the engineer in me. And I found that actually understanding that women have larger tear ducts than men, so we can't help but cry quicker and more often, right? And also just our neuro pathways make us more emotional, more compassionate than men, with how our brain pathways intersect. So that helps us understand that it's just a natural consequence of how we're made. If men understand that, then it's not, oh, she's crying. It's not if she's going to cry. It's almost, when is she going to cry? Now, that doesn't mean that we can't do things to actually be purposeful about why we're crying, and to to not let that get the best of us, right? Because
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with crying. I think that we have to change our perspective on it. But for me, I don't like to cry when I'm angry or frustrated. It makes me feel out of control and not in control of my emotions.
Right.
So the best advice I can give is to first get very, very clear about how you're feeling in a conversation. We all know when we're starting to get stressed and things are bubbling and we're starting to get frustrated with someone that we're negotiating with, or they're putting us in a adversarial position. So understand and feel that coming on way back at square zero instead of when you're getting ready to explode, right?
Got it.
And then, so in that case, take a break. Say, oh, I'm so sorry. Could we take a minute and I'd hit the restroom? Or the other big thing is to stop and clear your head and count to 10 slowly. If you've got that chance.
Right.
And it could be counting. So we have some options on how to ensure that we're in control. It's like anything. I give you the analogy. Never leave a job, never run away from a job, right?
Right.
Run to something, right?
Got it.
Right? Never run away from a bad relationship, run to a good relationship.
Right.
Maybe. You see? So it's just we want to be in control of it,
right,
instead of it being control of us.
Right.
And and if you do cry, kind of lean into it and learn how to be able to speak while you're crying and get yourself back together, right?
It's an important skill coming from a crier.
Me too. Long history of crying in my family. Long history.
Well, Wendy, as we wrap up, I would love to know what sort of trend or hot topic is on your radar that you think we'll all be talking about in a year from now.
I think a big piece of getting more women in executive positions is sponsorship.
Oh, interesting.
We talk about mentoring and getting a mentor, but really building and knowing how to incite sponsorship for us in men, especially because they're the gatekeepers, they're in the positions of power.
Right.
And then a call to action of women to sponsor other women. I've recognized that women are almost harder on each other than men are ever harder on us in terms of helping each other. So I have a particular call to action that we as women should, a man to help another man just because they're a man. I can always say that about a woman.
Wow. So we need to sponsor other women to help elevate.
Exactly. And sponsoring means, let me tell you what, Katrina, you have got to get her to do your next marketing campaign. She is phenomenal. In fact, I'd like to set up a meeting where I introduce you to her.
That is.
So I'm already paving, I'm paving the way. Not, I'm going to send you an email and introduce you to Katrina. That's the minimum. That's the minimum, right? But this is about, I want to put my reputation on the line. And she's going to get you extraordinary results.
That's incredible. And that piece of putting yourself on the line, that is one that I feel like we see less and less often. It is what I see is the like, oh yeah, sure, I'll connect. Here's a LinkedIn invite or something, and it's there is really something powerful in someone really standing behind you and endorsing you and saying, hey, this is someone I really support and stand by.
Exactly. It is, and it is about really spending some of your capital, your political capital, to go out on a limb for that person, right? And it is, people do business with people. So if I already have a relationship with someone, then, and I extend that relationship to you, I have to have a lot of faith in you, right? Mm-hmm. But I also have to know you don't want to mar my relationship. Right. So I have a lot of trust in you, right?
Right. Very good. Well, thank you for that. As we close, so your book, Cowgirl Up, that is coming soon. What, 2 months out?
It's actually a couple months. So it's in the spring. We don't have an exact date. It's the April, May, June timeframe.
Okay. And so when it comes out, where should people look for it? Is it on Amazon or on your website?
It'll be both. And so I'm self-publishing. And so cowgirlup.com is the email address, is the web address. And I'm hoping that you will also tweet about it to your community.
Of course we will. So anyway, so after this is posted and the book is available, we'll make sure a link is below this interview so people can check that out. All right. Thank you, Wendy, for being here.